Well, good morning. Welcome back to GP Outdoors. Wanted to spend a few minutes and give you guys an update on the Woodshed build, as well as a follow-up to a lot of the discussion and great discussion we had after video number 268 as it pertained to trying to build a garage on this property here in the Canadian Shield. Hope you'll stick around. So after I released video number 268, I had an enormous response from you subscribers, which I really appreciate. A whole lot of people offered out different solutions or options to try to address some of the challenges that I pointed out in that video. Out of those responses, there were three major themes that kind of emerged or had a lot of support. So I wanted to talk about those three options and then also give you an update on this woodshed and where I'm at with it. Kind of in summary, the three main themes that kind of emerged out of that, the first and the most supported one was, GP, just go grab some shipping containers. They're really cheap. Grab 2 or 3 of them, level them out in this opening here or in this clearing, bolt them together, cut out the middle. You'll have a great shelter for the winter time. Probably 70 to 75% of the comments I received supported that option. Second one was folks said that perhaps I should look into things such as a shelter logic type of a frame structure with a tarped top on it. And the last one was a few people had suggested that I just have a monolithic slab poured here. So we're going to talk about each of those, then we're going to get back to the woodshed. You know, I was born and raised in Ontario, Canada, and I've lived here my entire life. In fact, I've never lived anywhere else, even for a short period of time. And I think it's kind of natural that after a while you kind of assume that the way things are here is generally where they are largely everywhere else. But after the comments I received, as well as a lot of YouTube videos I've watched over the last year and a half on garage builds and shed builds and home builds, I realized that maybe there's a lot of parts of the US and Canada and other places where the laws or the allowances are not quite the same. It kind of appears to me that there are a lot of places that don't have very stringent bylaws or building codes. In other words, somebody owns a big chunk of land, or whether it's 5 acres or 50 acres, and they want to build a garage, or they want to build a home or a cottage or a shed, they just go ahead and build it on their own. It's not like that here. So in most places, as you know, whether it's at a federal level, you've got laws, provincially you have them, and then similar to here, you've got municipal or county bylaws, which are kind of your more finite laws that are specific to a certain county or jurisdiction within, a geographic area. So as I expected, I did check with the county bylaw or the building department, and it is prohibited to put shipping containers on this property. Not temporarily, not permanently. No shipping containers. In most areas probably similar to where you live, your land is zoned a certain way within the law. Whether it's zoned commercial or industrial, residential or recreational. There's a number of different zonings which probably pertain more specifically to that area you live. In this case, the property here, believe it or not, even though I'm sitting through a forest and I'm on a lake, it's zoned as residential. And under the zoning bylaw for this area, I am not allowed to put anything temporary on this property, including shipping containers. But thank you so much for the offer and the suggestion and the advice and the ideas. Second point we talked about was kind of like a shelter logic or a large tent. A large number of people had suggested that option, and it's a good option because it's a good temporary shelter. I could get a lot of my equipment in there. Not as expensive, of course, as building. But I did look into them about a year and a half ago. I did talk to the people at Shelter Logic specifically, as well as a number of other companies through last summer. And not surprisingly, throughout those discussions, especially including the one that I drove up to a small town where they actually had a big industrial unit where they either distributed or sold the Shelter Logic units, they had asked me what I was going to do with it and where in Ontario I was going to construct it. After I told them it was up here, and I promise guys, I'm not trying to make it harder than it really is, they told me there'd be no warranty on the unit because of what they call a snow load up here. And I'm going to explain what a snow load is if there's folks that are watching that don't know what it is. It's a very, very important measure when it comes to constructing any type of a structure. But because of the snow load or the large amount of snow we have up here, each of those companies strongly recommended I do not attempt to use one of these small tarped sheds because they said it'll eventually rip or tear or break under the weight of the snow up here because we get so much usually. So no shipping container, no tarp shed, leaves me with a monolithic slab. So just for full disclosure, it may possibly be an option. I haven't yet reached out to the 2 excavation companies to ask their opinions of it, but very similarly, what I have read and what I've researched and understood online, I'm still going to be in a position, even if I pour a monolithic slab as opposed to, cutting out footings and putting forms in, I'm still going to have to backfill with gravel below it. So that cost I don't think goes away, but I do understand that it might be a little cheaper to do the one single pour, if that's possible. So I thank you folks for that idea, and I'll continue to follow that up. Any structure of any kind, whether it's a lean-to, an open shed, a house, a garage, any type of structure whatsoever that exceeds 100 square feet in size, regardless of the dimension, has to be put through a permit process. Permit process is costly and it's very detailed. The point of the process, of course, is that the buildings department of your municipality wants to ensure that whatever you're erecting on that property is built to the local and the provincial and federal building codes, and that you build it specifically to those codes. Let me tell you what's involved. And then I'm going to tell you about snow load, because that's a big one up here. So the permit process, simplified. Say I want to build a garage, or I want to build a shed that's greater than 100 square feet. I go to my local building department at the county or the municipality. I get an application. I pay them a lot of money because the process is not free. I have to get, first and foremost, I need architectural drawings and engineering drawings for whatever it is I'm constructing. And I mean full drawings. So whatever it is that you do decide to build, unless you're an engineer or you know how to do it, you need to work with a company who's going to be able to provide you the architectural drawings for whatever that structure is that you want to build. Second thing that's very important is once you've got your architectural drawings and you know what it is you're going to build, you'll remember last summer I had those licensed surveyors come out and do all my property lines. Well, you've got to get them back because the licensed surveyor is going to take a copy of that municipal land survey. You need to tell them where you're going to build it on your property. The guys will come in with their fancy transoms and everything. They'll find the monuments and they will pin the 4 corners of where that structure is to be built. And then they'll represent that on a land survey that you also have to submit, because you have to show the municipality exactly where that building is going to be, and it has to be surveyed. You can't just take the map and draw a little square. So high level, you got your survey done and you paid for that. It's not cheap, by the way. You've bought plans or had an architect build up the designs for that structure. You filled out that very long and very detailed permit application, put your check with it, and you send it into the buildings department at your municipality. And over the coming weeks, they'll go through it, check all the diagrams, the survey, all those good things, and they'll make sure that whatever structure that has been engineered or architected meets all of the building codes, including the local codes. Let's talk about snow load. One of the things I didn't tell you when I talked about this cottage build back on, I think it was video 258 or 256, what I didn't tell you is that my permit application that I'd submitted actually got rejected once and came back to us. The reason it did is because, and again, I'm a layman, I'm not a builder, the way the cottage or the support for the roof was designed, it didn't meet what they call the snow load requirement. I didn't know what that was at first, but in layman's terms, it basically means that whatever structure you build, whether it's a garage, a big shed, or a house, the structure has to be engineered such that it meets a certain minimum of, I think it's foot-pounds or pounds per foot or square foot on the roof. And we get a lot of snow up here. So in this area of Ontario, there's a very high snow load requirement. Long story short, I had to contact the company that I bought the architectural plans from, which was a standard design build, which I guess gets accepted in most parts of Ontario or in Canada. Identified the issues, sent them the notes from the building inspector. They had to re-engineer or redesign the roof and I think supporting structures in order to meet the snow load requirement for this part of Ontario. And then they sent the new architectural drawings back, got all my stuff back together again, put it back into the building department. The point of the story, though, is that anything I build here has to have architectural drawings because it's going to be bigger than 100 feet, except my little woodshed, because we're going to make sure it's less than 100 square feet. Up here, when you get your building permit, you have 12 months to finish building. If you don't build in the 12 months, you've got to reapply for an extension to that permit. During the building inspector will come out regularly to make sure everything's being built according to those architectural drawings. And hey, at the end, once the structure's finished, building inspector will come out, pass the building, and just when you think it's all over, there's one little extra surprise that happens. About a month or two after you're done, and you think everything's fine, you'll get a letter in the mail. It's coming from your tax department. It'll be an assessment letter that tells you how much more property tax you now have to pay every year based on the increase to the living space you've created on that property you own. It's true. So let's talk about my woodshed. So of course, I'm just full of good news today. Because you know, for every solution, isn't that what Grampy says in Grampy's workshop? For every solution, there's a problem. Took my woodshed build a little further, and of course, I've been talking to Guy over the last few weeks because we've been kicking around designs. We haven't quite designed something yet. We're finalized the design, but we know we're going to have to keep it below the 100 square feet. If you remember from the initial video back in February, I told you I wanted to put the shed right here. Be a perfect spot for me. Behind the house, out of sight, out of mind, easy to access, especially if I need to get in to get sand for salting the hills. But spoke to the propane company. Propane company requires a minimum of 10 feet separation between the tanks and any type of structure. Now I thought it would be, you know, finished structures or large structures over a certain size, such as a home, a cottage, a garage. Even a small lean-to shed has to be a minimum of 10 feet away from the propane tanks. So that 10 feet puts me right about here, pretty much parallel with the edge of this tree. And you're thinking, okay, not the end of the world. Maybe I could put the shed in this way, lengthways, because I've got about 12, 14 feet of depth there, got 7 or 8 feet here, and then I can come into it from the side, maybe put an opening for my sand here. But then I went back to the manual for my generator. My generator exhausts on this side, of course. So I talked to the generator tech, and I also looked through the manual. I'm required to keep a minimum of 5 feet distance between the exhaust and any type of permanent structure. So that leaves me about 3 feet. Bottom line, unfortunately the shed's not going here. So a few days ago, Guy and I took a little walk around the property. Wanted to share it with you folks. A couple of ideas. We looked at a few spots on the property, and the thing is, I don't really want to be looking at that woodshed all the time. And that's why I'm trying to keep it around the back of the cottage or out somewhere at a distance from the cottage that's still convenient or easily accessible, especially in the winter for my sand. So one of our primary considerations, talk to Guy. You may remember I dug this out about 2 summers ago, and I put about a foot of crusher run in here. And it was just to back up one of my trailers, as you can see. Guy's suggesting this could be a primary spot because we have what he called a natural berm. You've got the slope of the land coming in here to the side. You've got a build up in the back because I dug it out. And you've also got kind of a sloped down edge or a raised edge on this side as well. You've got about 10 feet between and about 13 or 14 feet back. Lots of room to dump a bunch of gravel, level out, and to build. And keep it back here. It'll be easily accessible through my driveway to get my sand in the wintertime. And it's out of sight, out of mind. That's so far our #1 primary pick. Second choice, right here on the far west side of my property, just inside the property line, we have some reasonably flat ground here, right on my driveway as I come around this corner to head up. And I have just enough room right by the property line here. As you remember, at the property surveyed last year, the bylaws require a minimum setback of 8 feet from the property line, which gives me about 16 feet to the edge of the driveway, which means I can easily put the woodshed here. Got lots of room down here to build it lengthways, and it'll be right on the driveway. And reasonably convenient to the house if I need wood, and is kind of sheltered back here behind this little edge of forest. Another big consideration of where or how to build the shed or the shed design depends on where we decide to put it. We're served by the westerly winds here, which means that they basically come across from behind me. In other words, the winds are blowing this way. If I do put the shed in here, I'm going to be able to build that lean-to with the back closed to the wind, which means that the wood will not really see any snow, and neither will the sand compartment, you know, whether I build a door on it or not. It's basically naturally sheltered from the wind. Building it here means that the winds are coming at me. My access is from my parking area here, or my driveway, which means the face or the front of that shed is going to be directly facing the wind through the wintertime. So if we do decide to put it here, I'm going to have to consider or think of how we're going to design the shed to minimize the amount of snow getting in on the wood or into the compartment where I keep the sand. So there you have it. Down to 2 choices for locations, and I'm sure you know what's coming. Always appreciate any suggestions or ideas or thoughts you guys have on which one might be better. We've still got a little bit of time left to kind of finalize which location, and then Guy and I will finalize the design, because the quarries aren't open for almost another month. So even if I wanted to start tomorrow, I can't, because I can't get any gravel until probably the end of May. So I got a little time left. Once we get it figured out, we got to get at it. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, and it was a good update for you. If nothing else, it was informative for some. Thanks again for all your ideas and suggestions. I'm looking forward to getting this started and trying to get that back area cleaned up. If you like the channel, please click subscribe, hit the like button, and if you want to know when I'm posting videos, just click that little bell. Have a wonderful and safe week with your families, and be kind. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.